Hello, it's 6 o'clock and I'm going to start. I'm going to go over some information on STEM. We talked about that last week. I'm also going to finish the information that I give you on STEM from the article that I was reading. And then if we have time, I'm going to go over the specialist project that I did. It's on a curriculum, and I wanted to show you some innovative ways that I developed this curriculum for. It was on the Holocaust, and it was student directed. It had some lecture in it, but it had some other things too. So let me start with this article. There's a lot of controversy on schools, we all know that, and we get a lot of backlash that we're not doing our job. And I know in Florida, we develop tests to make sure the teachers are teaching. That's the reason we're testing students, and to make sure that students are learning. And this article talked about the fact that charter schools, we say, well, put the kids in charter schools, you're going to do better. This article talks about a STEM school that is doing very good, and all they did is change their curricula. So it has to deal with Florida. It was in the Tampa Times newspaper on Saturday. The article is written by David L. Kerr, and he starts out saying, as the Florida legislature considers directing $200 million to create charter schools of hope near struggling public schools, the author sees an example of how traditional public schools themselves can succeed if the recipe is right. And I know that there are a lot of successful schools out there. Even though the public is very leery of public schools, I know in the schools that I worked at, teachers did a really good job. Against some incredible odds at times. It almost seemed to me at times with public schools that the parents were running the school. I know that my grandchildren go to a magnet school, but you get demerits. If you don't show up, you have to explain why you're not there. If you don't have your parents sign your homework every night and have them help you with it, you get demerits. If you're late, you get demerits. The teachers have a lot of control. And that's not the way it is usually at public schools, what I've seen. That it seems like parents have a lot of control. I know that I've dealt with some students and with parents, and not a lot. When I taught, I didn't have a lot of discipline problems, but I noticed that a lot of times that the administrators would give in to the parents. So it really put you at odds sometimes and wondered what you were doing. So the class assignment is design an iPad video game. For the player to win, a cow must cross a 2-lane highway, dodging constant traffic. If she makes it, the sound of clapping is heard. If she's hit by a car, the game says, "Aw." Let me show you my notebook where I wrote the logarithm. And a logarithm is like a recipe. Leela, one of the students in the class, explained to the school officials who described the scene to me. You might assume these were gifted students in an elite school. Instead, they were 7-year-olds, second graders, in the United Public Schools district in the eastern part of Tulsa, where more than a third of the students are Latino, many of them English language learners, and 70% free or reduced price lunch. From kindergarten through high school, they get a state-of-the-art education in science, technology, engineering, math, and the STEM subjects. And that's important because these are where the jobs are going to be. When they're in high school, these students will design web pages and mobile apps, as well as tackle cybersecurity and artificial intelligence projects. And STEM for all, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, is only one of the eye-opening opportunities in this district of around 16,000 students. Betsy DeVos, book your plane ticket now, because Betsy DeVos is now our Secretary of Education, and she is a prime supporter of charter schools. DeVos, the new Secretary of Education, dismisses public schools as too slow-moving and difficult to reform. She's calling for the expansion of supposedly number of charter schools and vouchers that enable parents to send their children to private or parochial schools. But Union shows what can be achieved when a public school system takes the time to invest in a culture of high expectations, recruit top flight professionals, and hold on a second, let me get to the right part. And develop ties between schools and the community. Union has accomplished all this despite operating on a miserly budget. Oklahoma has the dubious distinction of being first in the nation in cutting funds for education 3 years running, and Union spends just about $7,605 a year in state and local funds on each student. That's about a third less than the national average. Although contributions from the community modestly augment the budget, a Union teacher with 2 decades experience and a doctorate earns less than $50,000 a year. Our motto is, we are here for the kids. Kathy Burden, who retired in 2013 after 19 years as superintendent, told me, "That's not just a feel-good slogan. About a decade ago, I called a special principals meeting. The schools were closed that day because of an ice storm and ran down the list of student dropouts name by name," she said. "No one knew the story of any kid on that list. It was humiliating. We hadn't done our job. It was also a wake-up call. Since then," she adds, "we tell students we're going to be the parent who shows you how you can go to college." Last summer, Kurt Hartzler, the current superintendent, tracked down 64 seniors who had been on track to graduate but dropped out. He persuaded almost all of them to complete their coursework. "Too many educators give up on kids," he told me. "They think that if an 18-year-old doesn't have a diploma, he's got to figure out things for himself. I hate that mindset." The individual attention has paid off, as Union has defied the demographic odds. In 2016, the district had a high school graduation rate of 89%, 15 percentage points more than in 2007, where the community was the wealthier and 7% points higher than the national average. I just read an article today in the Tampa Tribune, the Tampa Times, about how USF, University of South Florida, is tracking down students who are not doing well in their classes and offering them support and encouraging them to continue on with their education and to do better. And their graduation rate is really high. If it's money, they're trying to get them involved with organizations that can support them. If it's tutoring, they have tutoring available. So I thought that was really interesting that University of South Florida has a high graduation rate because they do this. And this is what we do in online education. If you're not working, I will report your name to the counselor, who will get in touch with you and see what we can do to help you to get you working. And, that's very important. I think there should be somebody at all high schools tracking down people who are not attending classes and seeing what they can do for them. I know that I had 150 students, and it was really hard when I taught to keep track and to follow everybody and to track down. And I did sometimes call parents when kids were not in school, but I think they need a professional to do this. Okay. It was a wake-up call. Since then, she adds, our motto is, we're here for all the kids. She retired in 2013, I already read that. It's also a wake-up call. Since then, she adds, we tell the students that we're going to be the parent who shows how you can go to college. The individual attention has paid off. as Union has defied the demographic odds. In 2016, the district had a high school graduation rate of 89%, 15 percentage points more than in 2007, when the community was wealthier, and 7 percentage points higher than the national average. The school district also realized, as Burden put it, that focusing entirely on academics wasn't enough, especially for poor kids. Beginning in 2004, Union started revamping its schools into what are generally known as community schools. These schools open early so parents can drop their kids on their way to work and stay open late and during summers. They offer students the cornucopia of activities, art, music, science, sports, tutoring that middle-class families routinely provide. And that's, right there, that's what we need. I know that art has been cut at school, music has been cut. The high school that I taught didn't even have a band. We had nobody in the library. We didn't have a librarian. You need to have these things. The kids need to be involved in art and music and science and sports. And they need to have the availability of tutoring. The teachers did tutor after school at the school that I worked at. They operate as neighborhood hubs, providing families with access to a healthcare clinic in the school or nearby, connecting parents to job training opportunities, delivering clothing, food, furniture, and bikes, and enabling teenage mothers to graduate by offering daycare for their infants. And I know that I work for another university, and my lead faculty told me, she's an administrator, that she would collect coats from her friends that their children had outgrown, and she would bring them to school because she worked at a low-income school and say, oh, I found the right thing just for you. I think you're going to love it, just so that they wouldn't feel bad. And she would give them the coats, because if she didn't, she said, that they would come to school in skimpy outerwear for winter and be really cold, and that's right outside of Boston. 2 fifth graders guided me around one of the community schools. Krista McAuliffe Elementary, a sprawling brick building surrounded by acres of athletic fields. It was more than an hour after the school day ended that the building buzzed with the choir practice, art classes, a soccer club, a student newspaper. The editors interviewed me, and a garden where students were growing corn and radishes. Tony, one of my young guides, performed in a folk dance troupe. The walls were festooned with family photographs under a banner that said, "We are all family." This environment reaps big dividends. Attendance and test scores have soared in the community schools, while suspensions have plummeted. The district investment in science and math has paid off too. According to Emily Leam, who runs Union's STEM program, the district felt it was imperative to offer STEM classes to all students, not just those deemed gifted. In one class, I watched 8th graders create an orthotic brace for a child with cerebral palsy, the specs. The toe must be able to rise but cannot fall. Using software that the industry standard, 20 students came up with designs and then plaster of Paris models of the brace. It's not unusual for students struggling in other subjects to find themselves in the STEM classes, Lim says. Teachers are seeing kids who don't regard themselves as good readers back into reading because they care about the topic. And I think that's so important. I think we've gotten so carried away with testing that we forget to focus on the individual child and what the child needs, and to give the child art and music, and offer more STEM classes where the kids can create and be more involved. And I know we're heading in that direction. I know when I left school only a year ago, we were told that they did not want us lecturing. They wanted the kids actively involved in learning. And when they did their walkthroughs, the administrators, they would be looking for kids actively involved in groups in creating something. And that's a whole new twist, because I taught seniors. And a lot of my seniors were going to college. And I wondered what they were going to do, because college and high school, now high school and all schools are pushing for project-based learning, but colleges are still lecturing and giving kids tests. And so there's a disconnect there. And I know that I taught the dual enrollment classes where the kids got high school and college credit. And I thought it was up to me to teach them how to take notes. Then, like I said, I was teaching those classes in high school, and they were pushing me to do projects with the kids. A fourth grader at Rosa Parks Elementary, who had trouble reading and writing, felt like a failure and sometimes vented his frustration with his fists, but he's thriving in the STEM class. When the class designed vehicles to safely transport an egg, he went further than anybody else by giving his car doors an opened upward, turning it into a little Lamborghini. Such small victories have changed the way he behaves in class. His teacher said he works harder and acts out much less. Superintendent and school boards often lust after quick fix. The average urban school chief lasts around 3 years, and there's no shortage of shamans promising to disrupt the status quo. The truth is that school systems improve not through flash and dazzle, but by linking talented teachers, a challenging curriculum, and engaged students. This is Union's not-so-secret stance. Start out with an academically solid foundation, then look for ways to keep getting better. Union's model begins with high-quality pre-kindergarten, which enrolls almost 80% of the 4-year-olds in the district. I know the state of Florida passed a law that you could send your child to pre-K if you wanted to. You weren't mandated. My daughter-in-law sent both our grandchildren to pre-K, and it was paid for by the state, and she thinks it really helped them. And it ends at the high school, which combines a collegiate atmosphere, lecture halls, student lounges, and cafeteria with 9 food stations that dish up meals like fish tacos and pasta paneca, with the one-on-one attention that characterizes the district. Counselors work with the same students throughout high school, and because they know the students well, they can guide them through their next steps. For many, going to community college can be a leap into anonymity, and they flounder. The 3-year graduation rate at Tulsa Community College, typical of most urban communities, is a miserable 14%. But Union's college and high school students initiative enables students to start earning community college credits before they graduate, giving them a leg up. I know that when I taught, like I said, I taught the dual enrollment students. They were the bulk of what I taught, but you had to have a 3.0 average, and you had to pass either the ACT with a certain score or another college entrance examination. And if you passed one of those and had the 3.0, you could take classes for free at the community college, and you could take my classes that I taught at the high school. I used the college text, and I was under the college. They came in and evaluated me, and kids got to evaluate me, and they had the same text as the students were using at the college. None of this has happened overnight, Burden recalled. We were very intentional. We started with a prototype program. The community schools tested it out and gradually expanded it. The model was organic. It grew because it was the right thing to do. Building relationships between students and teachers can also take time. The curriculum can wait. Lisa Witcher, the head of secondary education for Union, told the high school's faculty last fall, chemistry and English will come. During the first week, your job is to let your students know you care about them. And that is so important. And I know that you people in these classes do care about your students. One reason you're getting your degree is to help your students so you can get more knowledge. And that is so important, to let your kids know that you care. Because I think if you let your kids know that you care, you get more from them. They know that you have their vested interest at heart. And we get carried away. I know I did. When I left teaching a year ago, I could give my own final exam. I could make it up. We had to do it as a department. We could make up the final exam. We could make up a study guide, and we could administer that to the children. Now it's changed. It was changing this year. What's going to happen is that the county is going to send over an exam, and there'll be no study guide. So I don't know how the kids are going to prepare. They told the teachers when I was there just to teach to the performance standards. If you teach to the performance standards, then your kid should pass the test. But we all know that we take tests and we drop information and we forget information. We don't always retain information that we've learned. I know I've taken many classes in my life, and I can remember walking out of an exam, a 2-hour exam, and just dropping that information from my brain. So I don't know what the teachers are doing there this year, but there's too much emphasis on the test, and that has to change. And like I said, we are going toward project-based education, but yet we're still having the test at the end of the semester that counts toward a teacher's evaluation. So the teachers are running scared. They want to make sure that their students are digesting the information so they can do well on the test, so the teachers can get a good evaluation. And your evaluation depends on your raise. Or if you get 3 bad evaluations in a row, they can let you go. And your evaluation is based on your kids' test scores. So that's a lot of pressure. I know when we did study guides, like I said, you could give the kids a study guide and the kids could study the study guide and they would be prepared for the test. And that's what we did. And my kids fared very well on the test. Let me go back to the article. That message resonated with Lim, who left a job at the University of Oklahoma Tulsa School of Community Medicine and took a sizable pay cut to work for Union. I measure how I'm doing by whether a girl who has been kicked out of her house by her mom's boyfriend trusts me enough to tell me she needs a place to live, she told me. Union says we can step up and help. Under the radar, from Union City, New Jersey, and Montgomery County, Maryland, to Long Beach and Gardenia, California, school systems, the sizable numbers of students from poor families are doing great work. These ordinary districts took the time they needed to lay the groundwork for extraordinary results. Will DuBois and her education department appreciate the value of investing in high-quality public education and spread the word about school systems like Union? Or will the choice and vouchers ideology upstage the evidence? I've taken pretty much the whole time reading this article, and I thought it was extremely interesting and really relevant to where we are in education today. And I'm not going to do anything else with this today, with this meeting. I just want, I'd like to know your feelings on testing and what's going on in your schools. Are you teaching to the test because you have to? Or are you allowed some freedom? Is your school demanding? I know I have had students in my graduate level classes who tell me that their schools will not let them lecture more than 15 minutes a class period because they want the kids working. And like I told you, that's what was going on in our school district. They want the kids working together in groups, and they want the kids working on projects. They want them creating. And I developed a lot of projects before I left. My last year of teaching, I had my kids working on project, and it tickled my heart to watch them work together. They did a really good job. But then I had, like I said, I didn't have the pressure of having this test come from, to me, it's kind of coming from out of space, coming from the county office, You had no idea which part of the book would be on the test, and it's hard to teach just to the standards. So I'm going to stop here. You know how to reach me if you need to. Have a good week, and I'll see you in the class.